Evening, folks. It's me. Just me. Know Nothing Attorney. I know nothing, so you can too, because it's only in embracing that we know nothing that we can learn anything. And I'm having a lot of fun learning stuff with people. And helping other people learn stuff too. Last night, we talked to somebody for, God, it was like 5.5 hours. The stream went for over 6 hours. We talked to somebody who was far right, claimed that we had a lot in common because the horseshoe theory is real. The horseshoe theory, for those that aren't familiar, being that if you have the, which side is the way you view me? Okay, yeah, left. Okay, for you, if the political left and the political right, they get so far apart from each other they come back around and meet each other on the other side. That's really bad. There we go. Horseshoe, simple horseshoe. I think that's BS. As I clarified immediately with Jack, aka Super Jesus, last night. He said the only difference is that it was who we thought should benefit, and I was like, that's the big difference. That's the whole deal. Like, that's what matters. Because on the left, the key is pluralism, allowing people to be as they will, and on the right, the farther right you go, the more it is unify and conform, or you're out. Out of receiving the benefits of society, whatever. And I think that's the only thing that matters ultimately, is whether you are allowing other humans to thrive. So, 5.5 hours we talked, got into a little bit of religion, we got into a lot of bit of transgender rights, honestly got into a bit of like lecture mode in that, and I don't mean that in a condescending way. Like I just started talking and explaining, and then we got into a little bit of a contentious abortion or debate at the end. It was the most contentious that the debate got, but we were friendly for most of the time. And I still contend, I still hold the view, part of the thesis of this channel, that when you talk about polity and not policy, it is so much easier for both sides to come together. Polity is the key of the American concept. America was designed to allow people to support any policy under a polity that supports that. And so, like, instituting policy as, like, a governing concept is anti-American. creating a polity that allows for pluralism, that creates a weak executive, that is built on voting. That is American. You don't have to align with any specific ideas of what should be done once the government has power within the scope of its powers. You don't have to align with a specific position to have an American position. Anyway, all of last night started on the subject of research about the economic net benefit or net cost of the average immigrant. We were mainly focused on America at the time, despite the fact that the person who asked about that, aka the bad boy, the self-proclaimed Nazi we debated on Saturday, he raised some issues. I don't know if the issues were technically with the research, the research that I provided him on the subject, but he asked Grok, and Grok said some things that he found supported his position in relation to or as opposed to the research. And then I had some other AIs, just for the fun of it, critique his AI's response on the matter. And then he brought up Grok's response to the AI's response. I just went, screw it, we're not doing this anymore. I'm going to do the research myself, and I started to stream and started doing that research. Barely. I brought up a research document, and then it became a talk between me and Super Jesus. Yeah. So, my goal tonight is to follow up on what I left off with last night, and that is doing a little bit of research. There was another research topic that I wrote down from my talk with Jack last night. Why did wages stagnate after the Civil Rights Act and the 1965? He mentioned a specific law related to immigration. That one's more interesting to me. So I'm going to start with that one. Let's see. Where is my... Not that. This is... Oh, okay. I don't have my usual AI assistant up. Let's swap over to our workspace. Hello, OBS? You good? Okay. All right. So let's do the research thing. So we're going to call this... I keep forgetting where format. There we go. Let me clarify this. I don't want this to be my clan. And now, what was the act that he was mentioning? 1965 Immigration Act. Hart-Celler Act. I'm honestly, the plan tonight is to only stream for an hour because last night went for over 6 hours. It's basically a work day almost, and it was up past 3. I'm tired. I yeah, Freddy, I know. Precisely. We aren't afraid of facts, but we are critical of claims that are historically disfavored. You're just taking off without me. I'm not going to read any of this. I want to read the sources myself. I can come back and see what it said. Oh my god. It just keeps going. I didn't want all of this. I want sources. Calm down, Quad. Calm down. Damn, it's taking forever. Whoa. Okay. Wow, that's bad. This Economic Policy Institute. Nope, that's not what I want. Dude, that sucks. That sucks. Yeah, what are we looking at? Data for compensation, wages and benefits of production, non-supervisory workers in the private sector, and net productivity of the total economy. Net productivity is the growth of output of goods and services less depreciation per hour worked. You're not telling me whether this is real wages or... Okay, let's read from the start. Our country has suffered from rising income inequality and chronically slow growth in the living standards of low and moderate income Americans. This disappointing living standards of growth, which was in fact caused by rising income inequality, preceded the Great Recession and continues to this day. Sorry, Laura just texted me. I have to respond. She didn't just text me, but... Gotta be proud of my kid real quick. Hello? There we go. All right. Fortunately, all right, it's gonna. Fortunately, income inequality and middle-class living standards are now squarely on the political agenda, but despite their increasing salience, these issues are too often discussed in abstract terms. With a group of simple charts, this paper brings the challenge we face into sharp focus. It should not be surprising that trends in hourly wage growth have profound consequences for American living standards. Wage stagnation for the vast majority was not created by abstract economic trends. Rather, wages were suppressed by policy choices made on behalf of those with the most income, wealth, and power. In the past few decades, the American economy generated lots of income and wealth that would have allowed substantial living standards gains for every family. The same is true looking forward. Overall income and wealth will continue to grow. The key economic policy question is whether we will adopt policies that enable everyone to participate in a shared prosperity, or whether the growth of income and wealth will continue to accrue excessively and disproportionately to the best off 1%. The first policy choice should be to quickly restore full employment. The Federal Reserve Board can do this by not raising interest rates and slowing the recovery in the name of fighting inflationary pressures until wage growth is much, much stronger. Congress and the President can pursue the return to full employment by making public investments that can create both jobs and future productivity growth. After this, policymakers should support those labor standards that can restore some bargaining power to low and moderate wage workers in coming years. That means policy actions such as passing a higher minimum wage, expanding... This figure shows that the stakes of rising inequality for the broad American middle class are enormous. The figure compares the income growth of the middle 3/5 of American households since 1979 to their income growth had there been no growth in inequality. In 2007, the last year before the Great Recession, the average income of the middle 60% of American households was $76,000. It would have been 94 had inequality not widened. Had their incomes grown at the overall average rate, and overall average buoyed by stratospheric growth at the very top. The temporary dip in top incomes during the Great Recession did little to shrink that inequality tax, which stood at 16% in 2011. So, US middle class, $18,000 less dollars. Okay, wages. This figure shows that in the 3 decades following World War II. Now let's look at the timeline again here. So it started in about 1973. 10 years after the Civil Rights Act. Most of the past generation, pay for the vast majority lagged further and further behind overall productivity. This breakdown of pay growth has been especially evident in the last decade, affecting both college and non-college educated workers. Wage growth at the top 1%. The ability of those at the very top to claim an even ever larger share of overall wages is evident in this figure. 2 things stand out. First is the extraordinary rapid growth of annual wages for the top 1% compared with everyone else. Top 1% wages grew 138%, while wages of the bottom 90% grew just 15%. If the wages of the bottom 90% had grown at the average pace over this period, meaning that wages grew equally across the board, then the bottom 90%'s wages would have grown by 32%, more than double the actual growth. Come again? Right, because it's fewer people. Okay. Stagnant wages for middle-aged workers, declining wages for low-wage workers. Declining wage for low... God, that's awful. How can you? Over the entire 34-year period between 1979 and 2013, the hourly wages of middle-wage workers were stagnant, rising just 6%, less than 0.2% per year. This wage growth, in fact, occurred only because wages grew in the late 1990s, when labor markets got tight enough. Unemployment, for instance, fell to 4% in 1999 and 2000, to finally deliver across-the-board hourly wage growth. The wages of middle-aged workers were totally flat or in decline over the 80s, 90s, and 2000s, except for the late 90s. Well, the wages of low-wage workers fared even worse, falling 5% from... Jesus. Falling 5% from 1979 to 2013. It is interesting how it's kind of like an S-curve, though. Middle class wages are stagnant, middle-aged workers... Low wage is 10th percentile. Middle wage is 50th percentile. Very high wage is 95th percentile. Okay, so this is... an interesting point when considering... I mean, the timing is totally messed up, though. I was gonna say it's an interesting point considering Super Jesus's claim. Hello, I would like to... Why is this... Okay. I guess I have to... Hello. Can it... I'm just gonna snip. Considering Super Jesus' claim, because it really does look like at 1980 the wage seriously declines over time for low wage workers. Now, why is a different question. The wage and benefit plight of recent college graduates. Widespread problem of stagnant hourly wages is not a problem of insufficiently skilled or educated workers. As the figure shows, a four-year college degree has been no guarantee of decent wage growth. In 2013, inflation-adjusted hourly wages of young college graduates were lower than they were in the late 90s, a trend that held for both young male and female college students. Thus, wage stagnation and erosion afflict even the one-third of workers who have earned a four-year college degree. God, what the hell? Damn, what the fuck is going on with women? What are employers doing? What? That's crazy. Hi, Lasagna. Hello, sweet girl. Recent college graduates have been less and less able to find jobs that provide health insurance. The share of young college graduates who have employer-sponsored health insurance coverage fell from 61% in 1989 to 31% in 2012. Most of this health benefit erosion occurred since 2000, when just over half of recent college graduates had employer-provided health insurance. For high school graduates, the decline was even steeper, from 24. Dang. Hello, Cozina. How's it going? We're doing some research here from, it's a follow-up from our, I don't know if debate is the right word from last night, but I talked with a far-right individual for like 5.5 hours last night. And he left me wanting to research the cause of wage stagnation in the 1970s. So that's what I'm working on, but we are welcome to talk about anything you want to talk about. Well, not anything. But I'm happy to hear if there's anything you want to talk about, and I can consider that. That's not really wages. Factors driving wage stagnation. Oh, wow, we're just getting into causation. Okay. Well, this doesn't really explain it, because this didn't really become a big issue until close to 2000. But it's good to have on record. Facts and evidence. Policy choices regarding the minimum wage fuel wage inequality. While pay at the top of the labor market has outpaced nearly every labor market indicator for decades, pay at the bottom has severely lagged. This figure shows the decline in the real value of the minimum wage since its high in 1968, as well as what the federal minimum wage would be today if it had kept pace with the growth of real hourly wages of production and non-supervisory workers. I mean, obviously, that's not surprising. For a second, I was like, wait, what the heck? Like, the real minimum wage is effectively going down? I mean, of course it's effectively going down because it stayed the same number. With inflation, that's going to be less. Ah, man, I can't stop yawning. I might have to, like, make myself quit earlier because I mean, there's only 20 minutes left. I can push through. You are asking for so much attention. Do you want to come up here? The erosion of collective bargaining hurts all workers. Decline in union membership mirrors income gains of the top 10. Oh, wow. Wow, that is a very telling graph. That is such a telling graph. Oh yeah? Oh yeah? This way. Ah. This is a fascinating graph. I don't speak English. I'm not from the US, but I find it interesting even though I don't fully understand it. Find what interesting? Find the research topic interesting? Find the US interesting? Find English interesting? I gotta share this one on the Discord. This one's so fascinating to me. Ah. Can I ask where you're from? That cannot be an accident. Other factors behind stagnating American wages. This paper provides a brief overview of some of the causes of wage stagnation and inequality. Sources in the references section provide a more complete analysis. Excessive unemployment, not only during and after the Great Recession, but over most years since 1979, has suppressed wage growth, adversely affecting low-wage workers more than middle-wage workers, but having little impact on high-wage workers. Global integration with low-wage countries, accelerated by particular trade policies, has adversely affected wages of non-college educated workers. The erosion of labor standards and weak enforcement have also put downward pressure on wages. Okay. Let's save these. Ah. Montevideo, Uruguay. Right? Montevideo is the capital? Trying to remember my Spanish class mnemonics for remembering capitals in South America. Cause. Alternative explanations. I'm gonna go with economic. Wow, Austin. Economic Policy Institute. I've gotta admit, Cozina, I don't know a lot about Uruguay. How is your political system set up down there? Oh, silly me. This is what I meant to do. ADHD sucks. What? Stop. I don't want to... Boy, I'm getting frustrated. There we go. Republican democracy. The Constitution is based on that of the U.S. and it currently has a left-wing government. How's that working out for you guys? All branches of government are left-wing? President is elected by popular vote for a 5-year term. No immediate re-election. Must sit out at least 1 term. Okay. Serves as head of state, head of government, and commander-in-chief. So, put a lot of weight behind the president. Council of Ministers. Appointed by the president. Must be politically acceptable to Parliament. The legislative branch, 31 members. I can't imagine having a government so small. Elected nationwide by proportional representation. Hey, now that is something quite a bit better than what we've got. Chamber of Deputies, 99 members, elected by proportional representation. Seats allocated by department. Okay. Judicial branch. Appointed by Parliament with supermajority. The justices are appointed by Parliament? Man, y'all have got it sweet. That's a much better deal than appointed by the president. Appointed by the president is garbage. Compulsory voting is also a big deal. I'm not sure how I feel about compulsory voting. Like, it would have a major net good impact, but the fact that it is compelling action, I don't know. Uruguay consistently ranks among the freest and fairest electorates in the Americas. Very low levels of electoral fraud. Sorry, I have to do a deep dive investigation because part of the concept of the channel is rewriting a constitution, so I'm curious how other countries set up their system. Three dominant traditions: Colorado Party, National Party, and Broad Front. High party loyalty. I think any system with party loyalty is not healthy. I don't even know what that means. Uruguay is consistently ranked free by Freedom House, among the least corrupt countries in Latin America. High in press freedom, judicial independence, minority rights, LGBTQ plus legal protections, secular governance. Cozina, is it as awesome as it sounds? A lot of this sounds really good. The military is firmly under civilian control. Democratic civilian supremacy was fully restored. The armed forces play no active political role. Okay, but what does it mean for the military to be firmly under civilian control? Did I copy that last one over? Okay, so this is a very important point. So, on one hand, this looks like it supports Super Jesus's claim, but if you look closer at it, I feel like it counters his claim. Because this says the increased presence of undocumented workers who are vulnerable to employer exploitation also undercuts not only the wages of these workers, but also those in similar fields. Okay, so undocumented workers have an impact that has a downward pressure on wages. However, it's not the mere fact, the sheer force of people coming in and taking jobs where jobs are need to be performed. It's the fact that they can be exploited. So they come in undocumented. At least that's the claim. We haven't verified this claim. I would have to look into it more. They're coming in, and they're coming in undocumented. So employers who, we only need to look at a couple of those charts that we already looked at to see that employers cause all sorts of problems. But employers are exploiting these people. If they weren't undocumented, which is what would happen if you had a simpler immigration system, if they came in documented, then they couldn't be as easily exploited because you couldn't use the fact that they're undocumented against them. So I'm curious, does this go away? Does this impact go away if you are granting these people citizenship, for example? Lawrence Michel. Okay, what else we got? It depends on how you look at it, but Uruguay has all the foundations to be a first world country like Switzerland or Canada. The constitution is good, as is the culture, but there's a problem with drug trafficking and corruption. But this just said that it's one of the least corrupt. In short, it is a country with great potential, but serious socio-cultural problems in education, employment, and stagnant economic growth. Okay. In short, it's not as sweet as it sounded. But it sounds like there's a lot of good there. So it seems like across the board, I don't need to ask the question of when it happened. Except that I haven't reviewed these sources for myself. Okay. Pew Research Center 1973 wage stagnation. For most U.S. workers, real wages have barely budged in decades. Interesting. Interesting. So, wages aren't increasing with productivity, but they are raising with purchasing power. Which means that the people who are calculating wages are aiming to keep people complacent by keeping them exactly where they were before. Am I understanding that right? Current dollars versus constant 2018 dollars. Huh. That's curious. Average hourly earnings for non-management private sector workers in July were $22.65. After adjusting for inflation, however, today's average hourly wage has just about the same purchasing power it did in 1978. Flowing alongside the 1980s and early 1990s, and bumpy, inconsistent growth since then. In fact, in real terms, average hourly earnings peaked more than 45 years ago. Interesting. Okay. The statistics are not based on actual cases of corruption in the country because they are not recorded as such. For example, passports issued to Russians by the government. Oh no, not them. Drug traffickers who go unpunished because of bribes to the government or ways of making money through supposed social assistance that is not reflected. Gotcha. Similar measure, the usual weekly earnings of employed full-time wage and salary workers tells much the same story. I mean, a week is just 7 of those days, so okay. Benefit costs have risen faster than wages in recent years. That's not good. That's not healthy. Okay, before I stop my research and end stream for the night, I'm just going to take a look at what Claude found. Okay. The premise is verified with nuance. From the end of World War II through the late 1970s, the US economy generated a rapid wage growth that was widely shared. Since 1979, however, average wage growth has decelerated sharply. 1979? 79? I see. There was a spike back up again. So basically in 1980, yeah. Wages in the U.S. have stagnated since the early 1970s. Between 1979 and 2020, workers' wages grew by 17.5%, while productivity, Specific inflection point. Many descriptions of U.S. wage stagnation begin in 1973 or 1979 because that was the previous peak in the series. The rapid growth in inequality that began around that time. After adjusting for inflation, today's average hourly wage has just about the same purchasing power it did in 1978, following a long slide in the 1980s and early 1990s. A startling fact is that average real wages have grown by only 0.7% over the half-century beginning in February 1973. But there's debate. Since 1990, real median wages grew by 34%. The AEI argues you get different pictures depending on your base. Chair, come on. Real median wages grew by 34%. Well, doesn't that just have to do with the size of your middle class? What economists actually blame: EPI, deregulation, corporate-led globalization, erosion of the median wage, deunionization, macroeconomic policies that tolerate excess unemployment, and tax cuts for high earners. I notice you didn't mention when they talked about undocumented immigrants, which is kind of the point of this research. CEPR, institutional and structural factors cast doubt on rapid technological progress as primary driver. Well, sure. That wouldn't explain it. If you want to look it up, Switzerland in the 1960s. For me, it is the model of the most prosperous and sustainable country in the world. Maybe it will be useful for your project. Thank you. I'll write that down. American Switzerland? I don't even know what American Switzerland is. Heritage. Disputes methodology argues gap is smaller than... Of course Heritage Foundation does. Okay. Alright. Kellogg, labor market concentration. AEJ study, decline of standardized pay rates. Yeah, okay. timing and mechanism. Women's labor force participation rate, 33.9%, the baseline. 1970, 57.5%, 1989, 57.4%, 99, 60%. Here's the key insight. The most rapid flow of women into the labor force took place after 1970. Huh. Pausing not even for the deep recessions in the 1970s and 80s. I'm not sure I'm following you there. And what about men? The labor force participation rate of men has been decreasing since the 1950s, having registered 86.4% in 1950, 79.7% in 1970, 76.4% in 1990. So men's participation was declining while women's increased, partially offsetting any labor supply increase. Okay. But then my immediate response to that is, well, what? Do the men deserve the jobs more? No. So the 70s didn't see that big of a jump. Foreign-born share of the population. Oh, dang. By 1970, it was at its record low? Wow. The viewer's timing is completely backwards. Let me check if economists have studied the specific claim. No major study cites these as primary causes. I mean, that's good to know. Okay. No. I think I have earned myself a break and an early night. It's time for me to turn in after staying up till 3 to do this last night. So, I'm gonna chill. We did, I think, enough research that I'm satisfied with the answer. I mean, no, that's not enough research. I'm not satisfied. Because I didn't look at these sources myself. Okay. Anyway. I'm Know Nothing Attorney. I know nothing, so you can too. Because it's only in embracing that we know nothing that we can actually learn anything. And I'm here to learn with you, Cozina. And as usual, I'm proud of you. I don't need to know you for that to be real. You deserve to hear it. Because life is hard. It's always been hard. It always will be hard. And the way you face every day the way you do is remarkable. So stay remarkable. And I'll see you at the Constitutional Convention. And I'll see you tomorrow. Have a good night, Cozina. Have a good night if anybody ever watches this VOD.